Jennifer Nelson here, host of the Pocket Hours podcast. Here at Pocket Hours, I get to interview fabulous individuals in our industry to help educate us all and to up our game. We get to hear from them their secret sauce, how they are successful to hopefully help inspire us to do better work. The cool part is, as you listen to these interviews, you can also get clock hours on the go. So you listen to a podcast and then you email us at info@scoutrealestate.com to learn more about obtaining those hours. In the meantime, thanks for tuning in, and let's have some fun learning how to be better at what we do.
Hi everyone, welcome. Hi. Oh my gosh, look at how many there are of us here. Let me give you a little background. First of all, I'm Jennifer Nelson. I am the designated broker and owner of Scout Real Estate and host of Pocket Hours. And I put a post up on Facebook or Instagram, and it was about something around private listings and coming soon. And the amount of engagement that I got from that made me think, I wonder if there are others like me that want a chance to talk about this topic. And sure enough, there are. So thank you for being here. I just want to first shout out to Daisy Jukes. I don't know if you heard the music playing before we started, but this gal right here, this is Tyler Webster. She's from Scout, so thank you for the music. She is very bookable, so if you need a good DJ, there you go. Daisy Jukes. Okay, today this class is sponsored by Pocket Hours. You'll see in front of you a little brochure with my face on it. You're welcome. You can take that with you. I'm the host of Pocket Hours. How did Pocket Hours get started? It got started because there are too many clock hour classes that are just frankly boring and not helpful. And so I started Pocket Hours because I wanted to interview high producers and other industry professionals that allows you to not have 70 lunches. How about that? I just saved you from 70 lunches. So you have a chance for me to hear me talk to these folks about their best practices, about the things they've learned. And by the way, how many of you have heard of Pocket Hours before? But now all of you, how exciting. The point is that if you listen to this for more than one episode, you're gonna notice that there's trends, right? That these high producing agents, you'll say, hey, wait a minute, I already heard this other person say that very same thing. So that's the goal. I just saved you some time. You can listen to it on any podcast site. There's a QR code on there. You can scan it and go and listen to it. If you listen to 3 episodes, you get 3 clock hour credits. How about that? Pretty easy, right? It's called Pocket Hours, clever, because you can stick your little phone in your pocket with your earbuds and get hours, right? It's pretty smart. Okay, Pocket Hours. I want to acknowledge Shannon Perry, who's right over here to our right. She is with Audiotocracy. She is the producer of this podcast, and this is being recorded today. So say what you will, but it will be forever on Pocket Hours podcast. Okay. Bathrooms, if you haven't found them, there's one in this room and one out in the lobby. Feel free to use those at your need. If you parked and need to move in 2 hours, set your own little timer and make your way to move your car. At least get the little white chalk mark to the bottom of the tire, right? That's all we need. Okay, I'm going to introduce the panel, and then we'll talk a little bit about how today is going to go. So in alphabetical order, as you see in your brochure, we have Danny Adamson with Lake Real Estate. Thank you, Danny, for being here. Okay, in an effort to make everyone feel as welcome, you have to clap the same for every panel member, okay? We have Albert Clark from Real Residential. We have Javila Creer from Windermere Real Estate. We have Aaron Jocelyn from Compass. Thank you, Aaron. Steve Kennedy from Compass. And Moya Skillman from Compass. Okay, we put together this brochure. By the way, I hate the word pamphlet, so don't anyone say it to me. It's a bugger. I hate the word. So this is a brochure, okay? We put this together. If any of you have been to Battle of the Barristers, the goal is for you to be able to follow along in some of these questions and take notes. You had a pad of paper and a pen provided to you for this class. Feel free to make notes. You will have an opportunity at the end of each one of the sections that we're talking about to ask a question of the panel. The microphone is right over there by Shannon. You can stand up when I give you the cue that it's time to ask questions, make your way there and ask a question. If you are microphone shy and scared to stand up in front of this group and ask your question, we see you. Please write your question on a piece of paper so that I can read it, and raise your hand and one of us will come get it and read the question for you. Make sense? Yep. Okay. Before we start today, I want to say something important. You likely came into this building today with a preconceived notion of what you think about this topic. I did. And the goal of today is not to have a fighting match, a debate where people do character assassinations or we make each other feel stupid or wrong. That's not the goal today. The goal today is to broaden your perspective. So if I will feel successful if you walk out of here in the next couple of hours saying, I hadn't thought of that aspect of it. So please open your mind, ask good questions, and we're all going to be successful today. Sound good? Everybody in? Awesome. Okay, in your packet, you'll see the layout of the class. I'm going to give 2 seconds of the most recent things that have happened. We're going to talk a little bit about the 3-phased marketing strategy. And Moya called me last night. I thought it was a great conversation. Just to be clear, this is a concept that we're talking about today, right? This isn't something that we're saying is only to Compass. This is the point of today is to say, should we, what are the pros and cons of these things that are happening in our industry or could happen in our industry, all right? So let's jump in for just a second. If you got dragged to this clock hour class because you just did and it was clock hour and you're like, sure, I'll go, let me help you figure out why you're here. Last April, Compass filed a lawsuit against the Northwest MLS, alleging that the MLS is anti-competitive, among other things. That was last April. The Northwest MLS fired back, countersuing Compass, saying Compass's closed-door system allegedly violates Washington Consumer Protection Act. And then I think all of you are aware, and if you're not, in June of this year, a new law will be put into place from Senate Bill 6091. So here we are. That leads us to today and to starting the questions. At the end of your packet, your brochure, there's an article that Seattle Times wrote that I thought did a fairly good job of representing both sides of this. I put it in here for you to read if you haven't been up to speed on these things as well. Okay, so this is how this is going to go. We're going to start in with the questions. There's 3 sections, and the first one is to talk about the pros and cons of private exclusives and coming soon marketing strategy. Just so you all are aware, if you could follow along in your packet, the 3-phase marketing strategy. The highlights are phase 1, private exclusives. This is the soft launch, the VIP preview, where the home is quietly marketed to any network. We're going to leave Compass out of that, to pre-screen the buyers. The purpose is to test aspirational pricing and gather professional feedback without public scrutiny. One of the key benefits is 0 days on market, and no public price drop history is recorded. Phase 2, if there was another phase, the coming soon phase. This is the teaser trailer phase. The listing is expanded to the public, but exclusively on whatever network it is on. Some partners like Redfin would be a part of this before it hits the broader MLS. It builds anticipation and buzz while the home is being staged or prepared for photos. One of the key benefits is it still protects the property's public days on market and the price history, and it protects the price history while gaining visibility. The strategy, your agent uses real-time engagement data from the property page to see how many buyers are viewing and sharing the home. And then the 3rd phase would be where we launch it to the public on the MLS. Okay? That's the phase system. We're talking again about the pros and cons of private exclusives and about coming soon listings. Are we ready? Everybody ready? All right, awesome. These questions came into us, so don't shoot the messenger, please. Some of these questions came in, and so we're going to ask. And panel, if you could be your most woke, most self-aware self today. How about that? There's 6 of you on the panel. We want to hear from all 6 of you. And if you are hogging the mic, You might have me interrupt you. So that's how that's going to go. All right. First question, if somebody wants to take it. If a house is marketed to only one brokerage's website and sells without going to the open market, how do we know if the sellers are making the most money that they could have?
I think it's an impossible question. You'll never know if your house could have sold for more or less in any scenario, right? You could list it a week later and you don't know if that would have made a difference, because you get your one shot every time to present and see who picks it up at that moment. An hour can make a difference. So I don't think we can ever know if putting it to a really limited market versus a whole, worldwide market is going to change the price. It could change it one direction in one instance and the other direction in the other instance. But what we do know is that there's great frustration when not everyone gets access to something, when something goes without them ever knowing that it was an option.
Next question. Are there any long-term impacts for sellers using private exclusives? For sellers, specifically for sellers.
You said long-term impacts?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to answer? Yeah, the long-term impact is that we don't have that information across all people, right? And so you get this limited amount of people who have this limited amount of information, and information rules, right? So whoever has that information is obviously going to be the one that then gets the next information and the next information. So if we put it all into one vessel, then everybody else doesn't get it. And so it becomes a big challenge years later when we no longer have a way to resource the data.
Can I add to that? So I think when the MLS changed, I don't know how many years ago, to allow us to put in unlisted sales, that really helped with the data. You used to have to, call the title company, hey, has anything else sold in View Ridge in this price point in the last 2 years that I can use that was off market, maybe not inputted. So when the MLS was changed that so that we could input unlisted sales, that really helped. And I know, probably all of us in this room, when we run those CMAs, we check all the boxes, including the unlisted sales. Well, in June, I think we're going to see that change, and people will be very scared to put in their unlisted sales because they will be so worried about, now it's not just an MLS fine, it is you can lose your license and no longer provide for your family. So I think the data is going to become really skewed again, which will add another layer. We all go back to calling title and all of that, which is fine. We're all super hard workers in this room and can do all those steps. But I think Javila's right that it does impact the data, and restricting it actually creates those problems versus making it more open. So right now, one of the highest sales in Seattle was an off-market sale purchased by the head of Zillow, just closed in March at $13.9, and that was a very closed door deal that happened. That is in the MLS. If that happened maybe in July, would we see that put in? I don't know.
So I'm just curious, in terms of all of us here, when we see sale unlisted, how much weight do we use for that in our CMAs? I know for me personally, I see it, but I'm not giving it the full credence of it hit the market, it was exposed, should I give it the weight that it may deserve? So I think that's kind of the long term that I see right now.
Well, also you generally don't get photos. It's hard to, as a comparison, because there's such limited data on unlisted.
It's useful from a perspective of, like, I see a lot of unlisted sales being to builders, and I think it's really useful when you're talking to a builder about what someone's willing to pay for something. So in that regard, I think it's very useful. I think you can also find that information like through Zillow now. I think Zillow pops up the unlisted sales even if they don't go into the MLS. Because I have clients who are like, why did this sell for so cheap? And I'm like, it's because they inherited it, and the new price got recorded at whatever they said the value was that they inherited it at. So there's like, you're correct. The stuff that's unlisted doesn't carry as much weight. Also, just so we're clear, like our entire MLS, the Northwest MLS, which is super cooperative and a lot of people use it in the same way, like 7% of the sales are unlisted. It's not a huge part of our market.
7% are actually input.
7% are input as unlisted. Yeah. Yeah, and someone had asked the question about this panel and unlisted sales, which, by the way, I don't think off-market is actually the topic today. I think it's more coming soon. But this whole panel, we're all under that 7%. You are the highest off-market sale person, and it was still, right around the market average. So this is not like a group of huge off-market selling people, at least that are input into the MLS.
How do private exclusives differ from any run-of-the-mill off-market sale? It's like we planned this. That was amazing. How do they differ? Do they differ?
I can answer. I think that what the coming soon it allows a seller to have their choice of what they want to do, but it gives them the chance if they wanted to try a higher price and kind of float it out there and not and get it exposed. They should have. I think should be able to have that choice to do that. So I think it differs from when you stick it in the multiple. They want to try the higher price, and then they kind of get pounded with days on market and price reductions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think there are certain sellers where if they were able to put their home on the market as like a tentative, maybe they'd be able to gather enough information to be able to do it right when they actually go to real market. So I think of that coming soon as an opportunity to just test it out. I think one of the things that I see as a flaw is whenever I've had a listing that a seller wants to try to show to people before, or like while it's being prepped, whenever I shop it out to someone, they'll like drive by and cross it off their list, and then they'll never come back again when it's active and like presented really pretty. Or they'll look at whatever the listing was from 20 years ago and they'll be like, that backyard sucks. And I'm like, well, you haven't seen it because the backyard now is beautiful. So I think that, adding more inventory to our market that's not presented in a beautiful way isn't necessarily helpful. But should a seller be able to do it if they want to? Yeah, why not?
I think there's also a little bit of if you look at it from the buyer perspective, if buyers start to say, okay, so sellers are going to do that to try to hoodwink us, like to try to get some high price, like how does that?
Yeah, well, they
That's what their agents
clue
for,
into
though,
it
right?
fast.
What's that?
Isn't that what their agents for, to walk them through that? To not be hoodwinked? Isn't that what we're for?
Right.
Yeah, it's hard when you have to look at a bunch of different resources to figure out if they're being hoodwinked. So like one of the things that's nice right now is all of our listings have kind of the same data set up, so you can like run the stuff and you can show it in a bunch of different ways. Whereas if you had to pull from multiple different websites, it's like the rental market, right? It's fragmented. So to find a rental, you have to go to like Zillow and then rental.com and then Craigslist, and then maybe there's something on the MLS, and you have to pull them all together and create your own little spreadsheet, although I'm sure AI can do it for you now. And then you have to call each individual person to figure out if you can get access and to get out all the quirks. And like, it's just much more
It definitely adds a lot of
complicated.
layers. That's why if we were able to get this change for coming soon, like Bright MLS, so right now you can go into the MLS, Northwest MLS, through 2 clicks in your screen without logging out. You can go to Bright MLS, which is the other huge network that the Northwest MLS is affiliated with, and you can search coming soon all across the country in all those markets that Bright MLS is in. So if we were able to do that here as well, it wouldn't be as fragmented. And like I said, coming in June, I think you're going to see even more fragmentation and all these extra steps and layers, which, again, we're all used to doing. We're hard workers, so all good. But yeah, to your point, it would be amazing if we didn't have to do that and go to all these different sites like a rental market or something.
Oh, my understanding is that the MLSs that do allow coming soon, there's different versions of them. Some of them let you put it on for like a short amount of time before it goes live, and no access is allowed. You just get kind of like the basic information of what it is. And that information is not put out to the general public. It's just for brokers to look at.
It's all varied, because with clear cooperation with the change in March of 25, which was prior to the lawsuit. So the lawsuit was filed in response to NAR saying, okay, every MLS, you can make your own decision. We do agree that sellers should have a choice. So that came out in March of 25. And as a response to us having zero choice here in April, that's when the lawsuit was filed. Like, we should be along with the rest of the country and giving sellers choice. So yes, every MLS is different because that was part of the clear cooperation change. But our MLS has up until a few years ago, been so amazing. So I would think that if they do make this change, if we can get them to open the curtain and let the sunlight come in so everything is out, we could have those requirements in place where you have additional data if you're in the coming soon category. Because there are MLS as part of Bright MLS that do have a lot of the data you'd be looking for. So it'd be great to offer those choices to buyers and sellers here.
I think that Washington, D.C. has the Compass exclusive version of Coming Soon. And I think they may also have, this is a little bit hearsay, so data check me, but I think they might have multiple different MLSs and different ways that their listings can be reached through private and maybe public websites. And in speaking with some of the brokers there, it's made it very confusing as a market because they don't have access to or the information on the properties. And so they're not able to provide their buyers as much service as they were able to do before the Compass exclusives came. So I think that that's part of what the reaction was here, is the idea that instead of, this, we've very carefully put this together so that we all have kind of equal visibility into our listings. If we start to put those into different channels, then it takes that away and it makes it more difficult for, not us, I think this panel has proven that we're, pretty competent and going to be able to adjust to any
What
market.
would you say to the number of listings that you hear about from your colleagues that aren't shared with other people, but they share them with you because they know they can trust you and you won't turn them in for a fine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's always going to happen. I don't think that Compass Coming Soon is going to change that. I don't think those listings, I don't think that those get put on the Compass exclusive website.
Okay, Albert?
I mean, I do a lot of off-market from the development side, and I just think about, you said, what's the difference, private exclusive versus off-market? I know Steve does a lot from the development side too. Like, for the most part, those people have reached out to us or they've gotten a letter from us and they want to sell direct, right? So the private exclusive, number one, the word to me touches a nerve with me about being exclusive. So I guess the difference being is that if this private exclusive is with the agent, well, what does the benefit the seller? Does it benefit the seller? Because the seller should have ultimate choice, but does it benefit them to do this? Or is it just testing the waters? It's a very delicate situation because we get owners that test us all the time. I got this LR site. I got this NR site. How much would you pay for it, right? They're testing us. So we're all getting tested.
We always find when we are getting answered, there's a group of us, it's not too large, but the sellers are calling all of us, and they're actually working us to get the highest offer
Right.
most of the time.
Right.
So it all comes down to what we can convince the builder of, hey, what we're going to get on the backside, and plus you're going through a feasibility period and looking at the property. But to go back to your question, Jennifer, on what the advantage is, I know I do work with a lot of developers, and my developers are excited about a coming soon aspect of marketing because they're on a time clock. They've got a 13-month loan. They're building the property. If they're having to wait all the way to the end and get it completed, and they can't do any phase one marketing kind of thing, they just got a short time frame, and then they get in. If it doesn't sell right away, they got to do extensions on their loan. It costs them more money. So, and it's not so much that they're trying to test or hoodwink anybody or try to test the market at a higher price. We've kind of we've examined the market, and we know this house in Queen Anne should sell for $2.3 million. It's a single family we're building. The price per square foot is right. The odds of us being able to pull in someone who's wants to be a pre-sale buyer and work with us through the phase of, we can maybe make some changes for them, put in different countertops that they want, that kind of thing.
Well, pre-sale is a status in the MLS, so you can do that now. And it resets the days on, like when the property is done, then you can put it back on and it wipes out all the history. So that's already an option for new construction.
The letter of authorization.
Yeah, well, it's not just the LOA. You can also do it as a pre-sale listing.
But you spoke to that, like when we do a pre-sale new construction, somebody sees it when it's not completely finished.
Because this was a big argument like 10, 12, I don't remember how long ago, but it was a big problem because we would have these huge sites. We'd have 80 units and we would try to sell all 80 units, and you can't list all 80 on the MLS, it floods it. And if you just list like a representative sample, then that doesn't show the whole vast quantity. And so the MLS did change it so that with new construction specifically, you can do an LOA, which is kind of saying that this is my listing. And then you can do a pre-sale listing. And the pre-sale listing sits there all the way until it's done. And then when it's done, you toggle the little switch and it wipes it clean of days on market and it does the next thing. So I think that one of the arguments that I've heard for the coming soon is the idea that we could toggle that days on market switch for resale stuff too, right? Which I love. I love the idea of people not knowing that I blundered in my listing and it stank the whole time it was on the market and now I get a fresh start. I think it's great. But I also think that information is really useful, right? Like when I'm working with buyers, to be able to show them that someone tried to sell it 3 years ago for the same price is a useful data point.
I guess from the Compass agents up here, there's 3 of them. Do we have data from Compass as to the percentage of coming soons that actually convert versus going to market?
Nationally, yeah, I don't know the data. We don't have it here.
Coming
of course
never.
We're not.
Right, but national, that's
Not
one
allowed,
that's my
yes,
question.
Yeah, almost all of that. I think, Brandy and Chris and Raquel are here.
94 go to
over
market?
90%.
Go to market.
Yeah. Yep.
So wait, I just want to clarify that question, and I think, Albert, if I got it right, is the question that how many of the pre-sales, the coming soons or the private exclusives, sell before they get to the MLS? Is that the question?
6%.
6%.
And what is it?
6.
6%. Okay.
So the myth of this whole closed door thing, it's actually the opposite. There's a huge closed door network in this market now. That's how a lot of transactions happen.
We're not in the club.
And if you're not in the club, you don't get access to it. And Terry and I don't believe in that. Like that is not okay. So
Name the case study that you have in mind where you'd like to test it as a coming soon. Like I'd love the ideal scenario, the ideal case use of it.
Like a role play?
Yeah.
I love a role play. Let's go.
There's Danny. We've been waiting for Danny. There he is. Hang on. I just want to ask this, though. This is one of the next questions. If one of the reasons given for using the Compass coming soon, wow, that was funny, coming soon phase of marketing is to test the market price, how will marketing it internally to one brokerage actually give reliable data? I butchered that, but did you follow it?
So it's not
Okay,
to one,
that was good.
not to one brokerage,
'Kay.
right? So you can go on Redfin, look up any coming soons in any market except for this. So not to one brokerage. You would be able to, I won't ask for a show of hands because again, no one wants to be turned in. No one wants to get their license taken away on June 11th. But obviously there are people in this room that do broker price opinions. Hey, I'm bringing the staging through. Photos are this afternoon. I'll be at the house from 4 to 5. Would love it if you could come by. Would love your advice on where this price should be. So, all of that happens now. Like, probably some people are doing it this afternoon.
Doing it this morning.
Yeah, for sure.
That is against MLS policy. You can get a fine, and starting June 11th, you can lose your license. So just as long as we're all totally aware.
Can I I just want to state my opinion really quickly. The panel might continue to talk about other markets and things like that, but I want to say that in my opinion, our MLS is a beacon of how things are done right. We're the only ones that weren't named in those national lawsuits. Comparing ourselves to other... I think comparing ourselves to other markets and how they work and they get to do these things, and then once a listing finally comes on the market, it's looked at as this thing that nobody wants. That whole system just seems kind of whack to me, and I think we do things really well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's space to evolve. I think we have to grow and adapt whatever the next phase is. But I think it would be really nice if we were all on the same page about what that looked like. I don't see a huge, in my business, I don't see a huge need to list something as a coming soon before it's on the market. Although, Moya, I do price opinions occasionally, not often. It's usually when I'm flummoxed about a price. truly.
Don't do it after June 11th. You might have a few people that.
I won't turn you in.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Terry and I have never turned anyone in. You know, she's been at it 42 years. I've been at it 22. We have never turned anyone in. Someone tried to convince us to turn someone in last week because all over social media, it showed their photo shoot that they were doing and all of that.
So is that where we're headed to? I mean, because it sounds like June 12th, that's where we're headed to, in your mind. So we can't show I got a remodel property. I can't show the progress, even though I own it, right?
We have paid a $5,000 fine for, in the fall of 21, posting a photo of a red door at a Capitol Hill listing because we were bringing it on, I think it was like 2 days later, and we're like, you know, finishing the flower pots, da-da-da. All the, you know, as you're leaving the property and can't wait to bring this on, all of that video, photo, everything, that can all be screenshotted and turned in today, and you will receive a fine. The language is very, very clear. I encourage you to read it.
So you believe
and
that
look through the fines. It's all posted.
The exclusives will eliminate that?
If people were allowed to do a coming soon phase.
You're specific to like having the MLS allow a coming soon, right, Moya? It's not that you want it to be a Compass exclusive version. You want it to be an MLS, like everyone can do it.
We want to be able to sit in the living room with a client, like our client that was on Lake Sammamish that had a very difficult personal situation. She was very scared for her personal safety, and she did not want her house out there. And we did try and reach out to agents that have sold in the MLS in that area between like 1 and 2 million over the past, I think we went back 3 years. We made personal calls to probably 150 agents. One of them turned us in.
Did you have one of those, there's a listing agreement that says not to disclose
We had everything.
You had everything, and
It was a fund, that was, I think that was $5,000 too. I don't know, Brandy might remember.
Isn't there a clause though that if the safety of the seller?
Yeah, you can have an unlisted seller and an unlisted
It's all up
address.
to the decision maker at the MLS. So I would not count on. Oh my gosh, you guys! I wrote the check.
Well, no, I mean, Moya, to be fair, you have a big target.
Oh, totally. That's why we don't do anything. You will never see us post anything about anything. My DMs are filled with people other agents trying to get us to turn people in. Terry and I will never ever do that. We don't believe in that. We think the environment that has been created is horrible. And we feel lucky on one hand that we get all the information about all these like secret listings from all these other agents and all these other brokerages, but it is very frustrating to then also see them publicly say there should be no secret networks, but by the way, will you stop by at 4 and give me a price opinion or try and sell this property?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I felt like we were on two topics because what you were talking about is the price opinion piece, right? So I just want to understand that I get coming soon,
Price opinion is not, if you really read the MLS rules, you can't even do a price opinion. Does everyone do it? Of course we all do it. But that's actually not allowed, and you're like...
I feel like, so you got coming soon, which I totally understand, I see it all the time when people do their, coming soon or whatever. But my question is, on the price opinion, if you have people do a price opinion, your intention, I've never done, and I've done them, but June 11th, I could be out, fine, I'll speak me out. But I do price opinions, but it always goes to market. So I don't do a price opinion and then go.
It doesn't matter if it goes to market or not. The language is really clear. It is the action of calling, texting, emailing, definitely social media. The moment you share an address of a property that isn't visible to everyone else, you are in violation of the MLS law, the MLS policy. Come June 11th, you will be in violation of license law and can have your license revoked.
So you're saying no address, so I should just blindfold them, throw them in my car and drive them.
Let's keep going on our list here. Somebody sent this in. Sellers need to ask this question. Is this private listing strategy designed to serve me or to serve my brokerage? Is there incentive for a brokerage to keep listings, quote, in-house to maximize their profit? Is this in conflict with the seller's best outcome?
That's a great question.
Well, I will speak to what was that last year, Compass entered something in our market about exclusives. Didn't that happen last year?
Well, we tried,
We
very
tried.
brief period, mid-March to mid-April. Again, Brandy and Chris and Raquel are here, but then our feed was cut off. That was
Right.
fun. That's
So I remember that, and I was like,
Really
okay,
open.
well, who does that benefit, right? I'm not in that because I'm not with Compass anymore. Like, it only benefits the Compass brokers. That's what it seemed like to me. So I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but to me, I felt that way.
Yeah, I think we all felt that way.
Like, it only benefited Compass, and maybe that's why the pushback came. But going back to my original thought was, what does the private exclusive, or who does the private exclusive benefit? How does it benefit the seller, or is it a benefit to the broker so that they can have this access to maybe double-ended deal? Maybe that's the preconceived
There's
notion.
a ton of data on, because of course the double-ended thing comes up all the time, and there's all the data that shows that that's not what this is.
Good.
And I think again,
How?
huge fans of real residential.
Well-
And I think Nick and Brad and Sean especially, there are definitely a lot of scenarios where for their client, they have to offer a different strategy for them. And you have two of the highest sales in Seattle right now.
Yeah, and we have to all understand, sometimes we just ain't in the club, right? I know I'm not in the club for certain stuff, and you got to be okay with that. Keep it moving. That's my mentality. Steve sells a property that's a development site. How am I going to be upset that he got access to it before me? I think people got to get rid of the mentality of, I lost out on something. No, you got a lot to gain if you go out there and go get it. But I think we have all this fear of loss. Like, I lost out. No, you didn't. You just didn't have access. And you don't get access to everything. And
You don't, but do you think the buyers deserve to get access to everything?
That's my question, and I think Javila was making I think you were trending in this direction, which was, I would be very curious. I understand that there are scenarios that we could maybe all come up with in our minds that could potentially violate what we perceive to be the law. I'm wondering, of this 5%, are there many examples outside of my client is scared, nervous, I could trend further, maybe, affluent, maybe is a huge component of this, but I'm trying to find examples from the panel, from everyone, where maybe there is a carve out. That's what my understanding this discussion was made to get be. And so my curiosity question, are there examples where this test case is not ended up in someone being reported or, violating some unclear rule, but instead where maybe you guys could give us examples of things where it's not, I'm asking for a price opinion and I'm going to get turned in, but where you really see opportunity for the seller.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where Javila was going. I was very concerned that we weren't going to get the answer, and I'd love to hear from all of you, because I think we're all considering that.
The question was to go back to, in what scenario do we imagine the coming soon to be a really good option for our seller? Like, what's the best test case scenario for it being a success for a seller? And I have one. I have a condo that's rented, and the sellers would love to sell it, but they don't want to sell it. They don't want to kick the tenant out to sell it. And so it is coming soon. It's not available to be staged and marketed the right way. They would like to sell it, and they'd like to put it on the market. Now, the flip side of that is for my buyers. Do my buyers actually get to buy it? I don't know. They have to kick a tenant out. It's going to be a big hassle for them. Also, do we really want to show all the shadow inventory in the condo rental market right now? No, I'm not convinced we do. We already have lots of condo inventory, so showing all the shadow inventory is probably not going to be super helpful for anybody, buyers or sellers. So, I think there's two sides to every coin, but I would love to hear Moya's best case scenario of a coming soon listing.
We really are friends.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to maybe throw something out to someone in the audience and ask Shauna, like, when do you decide to do more of a coming soon approach versus not? I mean, you have a great example of a listing that's on right now that you guys decided did need to finally go to full exposure, but originally the client was really challenging and didn't want that. So how do you make those decisions?
Here she comes. She's making her way to the microphone.
I can't believe I got invoked here.
You're going to get invoked. By the way, I thought I should have made popcorn, shouldn't I, for something like this? Just watch it happen, right?
I have 2 examples. Is that on now? I'm actually super loud. I was a cheerleader in high school. I can just yell. But if you need it into this for audio, or does this work? So Moya is referring to a $28 million. It was started at 40 off market. I'm going to say that if anyone wants to turn me in. And we didn't float it to just our Windermere friends. We floated it to our Caldwell Banker friends, our Sotheby friends, our Real friends, our Compass friends, anyone that we knew might have a client in that price point. And when you get to the level of kidnappable as a qualification for a listing, it is an issue. And I would say that for a long time in the luxury market, we've operated under the radar with this, kind of without the MLS caring, because it didn't get isolated into one company. We were all sharing what we could through our networking groups, through Forum 22, through Platinum Group, through the condo network, but it was not exclusive to any one company. I was sharing it with Ann, and I was sharing it with Sean, and I was sharing it with anybody that I knew might have the person. So I think that what happened, obviously, the trigger was now it's going to be private. And I think that's what started the MLS going, well, wait a minute, we've kind of let you guys do this on your own. And so, so far everyone's behaved kind of okay. Moya, obviously you've been a target. We've had many conversations about this. And I think there are definitely isolated markets. Bainbridge Island, super competitive market. Dana is worried about being targeted for this stuff. And I understand that. We ended up listing the house unlisted, 7U, which is a mechanism by which you can utilize, and finally convinced the seller a week ago to let us publish the address. Like, if you can't find where the house is, maybe people can't find it to buy it. So ultimately it did come to market. We're on the market full now with undisclosed sellers. So that's the example. It's still not sold. And we're down at 22 million, 22.8. I would say the better example of the coming soon, which is I think what this panel is about, is that I listed a home on a non-IDX feed last week in Broadmoor because my sellers were 2 weeks out from listing the house, and they got a really severe health diagnosis, and they're going to have to go through treatment for the next 3 months. So we didn't want anyone looking in Broadmoor in the spring market to not know that we have the intention of selling this house in the fall once treatment's done. I understand through Matt DC that the non-IDX feed is no longer going to be an option. They're clamping us down on that now. So that has to be and prior to this, like, any one of you could have told your client,
shocking,
we're not going to put this on the IDX
shocking.
feed. It won't go out to Redfin. It won't go out to Zillow. And you could have done it. And nobody was approving it. Nobody was caring. Probably people who are new in real estate did it without knowing it because it's a checkbox. So I'm pretty sure there were houses that were sold without being on the IDX feed. But we used that for a 1-month listing as a coming soon. And I thought that was a great option. I don't think we're going to have that option anymore. Anyway, those are my 2 examples. So.
Okay.
I mean, actually, that is a great option.
Sarah, you had a...
I was just going to, like, as far as examples go, how many of us have met with a seller in November and they want to list in December, but you're like, it's December, it's not a great time. It's everybody's in December.
Hang on, I'm going to stop you so everyone can hear. How many of us have met with a seller in November and then they want to list right away? But it's November.
You're better off just waiting till after the new year.
Okay.
How about we get a picture of the front of your house and we do a coming soon throughout the month of December and then go live in January. That would be a great option if you're trying to gain timing of the market and trying to put it out there without having to be, you know, to me that feels like a perfect example of somebody that wants to listen fast. Well, they have months of work to do, but they want to.
Hang on, just before anybody speaks, I'm just, again, for the podcast, stating that that would be a good option for someone who wants to sell right away, but the timing of the market says, let's wait till spring, but let's go ahead and create some buzz by taking a picture of the front of the house. Am I good so far? Yeah. And putting it on a coming soon. This house is coming to market in the spring.
Well, and it's more just a function of days on market, right? So if you don't want to have 30 extra days on market,
yeah,
why not put it on coming soon so it doesn't start counting on the MLS?
So it saves on days on market.
Do you wish that that was something that was in the MLS, or do you wish that that was something on your company website?
I wish it was on the MLS.
I think the days on market argument is weak, to be honest. I think putting so much weight on, oh my God, someone's going to know we've been on the market for 2 weeks versus what you get in exchange with so much exposure. I don't know.
Okay, so Danny's listings sell like right away.
I can give you 5 this year.
He's got a five this year that
well.
have not done as well. I have a lot of listings that don't sell right away. I serve that section of the market that just takes more time. And I do wish that I could have a wipe that slate clean version. You know what my ideal version is? The coming soon, whatever, I would look at it if I was a broker, and maybe if there was a match for a buyer, I'd be like, look at this thing that I found that you don't have access to. Cool. For my listings, like I wish that the minute they hit 365 days on market, it was just 365 plus. That it didn't be like 742, 918. Like I feel like there's a point of diminishing return when you've got this like weird tally of too much market time, because who knows what the reason for that is. Maybe it's the home, but maybe it's a whole bunch of other factors that you can't control. So I actually am in support of like some tweaks to this. Like, what is reasonable?
One of the arguments, and I know you want to speak, one of the arguments is that diminishes people that are new on market. If we don't have days on market, then how does one tell an old listing or a stale listing from a new listing, right? That's one of the arguments. Danny, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I don't agree.
You don't have any condos on the market, do you?
I mean, I would say what I don't agree with is there's so many reasons why it's maybe not selling and is accumulating all these days on market. Usually we know the reason that it has 80 days on market. And I don't think that that's something we should be able to run away from. If it's overpriced or not prepared well, like, you know what to do.
Okay, we didn't answer the question that came up on the panel before we moved to buyers. The question is, if this happens, if the largest brokerage, whether that's Compass or Windermere or any other brokerage, begins to do this, and they sell houses in-house, right? Buyers are made aware because it's on their website, and then the sales continue to rack up on that one person's company's website. Is that not a monopoly? And if so, why or why not?
You're saying if it racked up on Compass's
anybody
platform.
So if
let's just throw Compass under the bus.
No, but to be honest, right now, who holds the market share?
Right.
Windermere.
Isn't Compass like 20% and Windermere's like 80?
No, remember Compass's BHAG was the top 20% of the top 20 markets by 2020, right? That was their goal when they started, and they have been doing an exceptional job of acquiring brokers.
Talent
to continue to grow their market share. And this is an excellent tool. If they were able to have Compass exclusives, is an excellent tool to make it so that all buyers want to go there and all sellers want to go there. And then they get all the website data traffic. So then they get all the data, and then they get to, sell that into it. They're snowballing it into something that does, they just grabbed all the brokerages. They probably do now have more market share because they bought the Sotheby's and the Coldwell Banker, like all the things, right? It was Windermere. Windermere has over 20% market share, and I think still does, and maybe even had more than that at some point. But, it's real. Like this is a very powerful marketing tool for them. And so I appreciate the Compass people in the audience here who support it, of course, right? But if we're looking at the golden rule, like do unto others as you would do unto yourself, is having this one thing that no one else is allowed to do appropriate? I'm not convinced that it is. But I do think that maybe it's something we should all have, that we can all use.
Sue.
So one of the things we saw with the lawsuit in 23 or whatever about buyers supposedly suing because they didn't know how much their buyer agent was making, which was insane. But anyway, so the whole thing was having information to everybody, not hoarding information just within the real estate industry, but to all the buyers and the sellers. So one of the things we've never shared is how much do the listing agents get as for their commission. We all know what buyer brokerages
yeah.
but we don't know what the listing agents make. So I feel like
Till you get the HUD.
coming soon and all of that is an extension of hoarding information. And if you have listings that are on the market for a long time, like you said, Danny, that's information. And that's information for the public, it's information for all of us. And information is power. You hide that information and the power gets very concentrated.
Does anybody on the panel have a comment for that?
Well, I mean, information, yes, right? Like if a company has the exclusives, right, and then people come and tend to say, okay, I'm going to that location now for my research. I'm not going to Zillow anymore or Redfin, because Redfin has a lot of the data. How many clients call you and like, I saw this on Redfin. Like, damn, my website's terrible, right? But I think maybe that's the bigger picture of getting this, is to capture that information. And if more people are going to one particular brokerage to get that information, then it does cut Zillow out of it. Maybe that's been the bigger issue between the companies. But to answer your question, if they do have this mass of sales coming through this exclusive, then yes, it does become a monopoly. I mean, that's what the definition of monopoly is.
Or, I mean, if one company that we're not going to single out does that, and then everyone else gets pissed off and Windermere says, well, we're going to do it too. Windermere has a bigger market share, and then what, Lake & Company joins Windermere because we're mad? Like, it just seems like a horrible recipe where we're all, and whatever. I'll put it this way too. The 9 of you in this room that know me, know I am probably the one on this panel who's the most hyper-focused in a neighborhood. I mean, shit, you want to like talk about, yeah, let's do some private stuff where everybody knows they got to talk to me to get a house in Ballard. Sure, bring it on. I'll make so much money, whatever. Like, but how is that benefiting my seller? It's not.
And you don't sell off market. I think that one of the questions, the $40,000 or $40 million. See, I don't work in $40 million. 400,000. But the $40 million one was very interesting to me because I had a client that wanted something specific in Seattle that was way more out of the range that I have. In my mind, I'm like, wait, you have to know what the water does at certain times of the day for your boat. Not my wheelhouse. Couldn't find them what they needed. They're like, our other option is going to Portland. So I referred them to Portland. I got nice, but I couldn't find them what I needed. Maybe it was out there. I mean, it's all, we're talking about all this very interesting private. I love Albert, I respect you completely. I think it is interesting though to hear about these people that don't want private exclusives. This isn't you, Albert, but I've been, working against whatever, your company for a long time. Show up to Moorhurst one day, cannot wait to show my client his house. Someone walks out and he's like, oh, we're pending. I was like, pending, you just came on the market. Well, everyone in the neighborhood knew about it. My Indian client didn't know about it. I was a minority affairs student, so I get real pissed off about this stuff. Any of the private exclusive to this. We have real estate signs. See, I'm correct. We have real estate signs because that was a way for minorities to know things were on the market in their neighborhood. Private, exclusive, our company, this is not what Seattle is about. Like, I interned in real estate down in Beverly Hills. It was your party. I'm like, Caitlin, I can get you into Beverly Hills. Your agent, no. Boom, cutthroat. The one thing that I love about this market, my 20 years in it, coming from a family with nothing, is the exclusiveness is with the agents. We are here to help each other out. So this to me is complete and utter bullshit. I'm just gonna say it. We don't need private, we don't need exclusive. Like, you tell your seller, you really lay it all out for them. I was in that situation where you wouldn't want your house on the market because it's dangerous to have people know about it. I understand that. We're gonna have scenarios and we should have protection for those sellers in those rare scenarios. But I have not heard enough from the people that wanna do this about why it is beneficial to sellers and buyers. I know a lot about why it's beneficial to particular companies, but I want to hear why, when I sit down with my seller, this is beneficial to them. Period.
This being coming soon? So
Yes, I want to know. Like, and if it is a situation where that seller needs to be protected, then we absolutely need those protections in place for those domestic violence situations, for all of those. Let's work on that and protecting the vulnerable, than creating a situation where the vulnerable and the marginalized don't know about what's happening.
There was a hand over there.
All right, so I am just going to say the things that I have sold that have been off market in the past 6 years, 7 years. And a big one is when COVID happened and the tenant landlord laws got really intense. A lot of clients sold off market to their renters. So allowing their renters to get into the market for the first time. Older folks moving into assisted living. That has been something that's been really tough if they don't have the financial capacity to be able to put the down payment down on a home or assisted living. So those are my top two. My last one is divorce. I got divorced last year and I would have loved to sell my house off market because it was a shit show. So I think there are times where it's necessary, and I've been at companies that do not agree with the private exclusives, and now I am with Compass, who is pushing for that. And I think there are a lot of cases where people do not want to sell on market. They want that privacy. They need that privacy for emotional, mental, physical health, whatever it might be. And in that, also with the Compass exclusives, any broker, any buyer can have access to that. It wasn't just for Compass. And if the MLS would allow that, it would be a lot easier for all of our companies to be more inclusive instead of exclusive. And so I think I just wanted to put that out there for everyone in here.
Devereaux, which of those sellers would have benefited the most from having an online coming soon listing versus off market?
I think you reach more of a market if you're able to put it on a platform, opposed to just reaching out to your 10 closest real estate agents that sell that market. Instead of reaching out to, if I'm selling in South Seattle and I'm reaching out to Albert Clark, I could reach out to a whole community of brokers, and also buyers that are looking in that specific area would also be able to find it. It's very streamlined, very smooth, and I think could have been a good opportunity for all of us as buyers brokers and listing brokers.
And do you wish that that was coming soon on the MLS, or do you wish that it was coming soon exclusive on your Compass website?
I feel like the MLS has controlled a lot of things. It's a great question. I don't know. I was excited to have it as an opportunity, however which way it came.
I checked out, you had asked a question on Instagram asking to know how many off-market sales all of the panel had done. And so you don't actually do that much off-market. You did 6 off-market sales. Jennifer does very little off-market as well.
Yeah, but I think the bigger question that's being asked is a good one, and that's to say, I think Javila just asked you this, is to say, if you had the option for your seller to do a coming soon, would you rather that option be just on your company's website, or would you rather that be for the whole world to see?
Well, I'd love for it to be on Redfin, and it's great that it's on Redfin all across the country now.
Yeah. So I think half of buyers are using
Or
Redfin,
Zillow
half are
Previews.
using-
I mean, how great is the Zillow Previews option for all these other agents? That's an amazing platform.
Okay, I don't know that we've answered your question yet, though. So the question is, how does this benefit a seller? And I think some people have said it allows for some safety for people that have safety concerns. It allows, not because you haven't said it, but I'm drawing a blank. How does it benefit a seller to have it be coming soon? Privacy,
But
already said that, got it.
it's not private on Redfin.
You gotta ask what is benefit for the seller, because that can look as many ways as there are sellers. And so when we say, would it benefit the seller, I think often we're just perceiving that it's the perceived premium on the sales price.
I just want to hear, where is it benefiting the seller?
Yeah, I would like to hear your prime example of where the coming soon would be.
I think that it's the question is that the seller is the person who knows the benefit.
I think I can answer that. I actually have a situation now. My aunt has dementia, and she just went into a home. And we've been debating, how do we get this property sold while she's still here? Because we couldn't find a home for her. She's out of the area, so I can't handle it myself. I have another aunt who's 84 trying to handle it. And she tells me, I want to sell this to the neighbor. He approached me about selling it. And I'm like, no, we got to put this on the market, right? We need to put this on the market because I don't know what the price, because I'm out of area, is the price that it should be worth, based upon what it is. Now, he wants to give you a number. I have no clue. Well, I don't have time. I'm tired. She's 84, right? I don't have time. I'm like, okay, Auntie, I'm a professional real estate agent. I can't advocate you just to sell to this guy. Exclusives could work for me, or in this situation, or coming soon, right? Because my aunt, who has dementia, doesn't want anybody in her house, right? Without someone coming in that she knows. So that could have worked. And I think what it is a situation of a case by case, right? And maybe that's the MLS's job to figure out. What is the case by case situation that they would allow for coming soon, and don't call it private exclusive, right? Because the term touches a nerve, right? It touched a nerve over here. Right? It touches a nerve with me personally, right? Because I still look at CC&Rs that are exclusive, right? So I think the MLS has to come up with the solution. We pay them very well, right? Compass has to come up with a solution to maybe tone it down, right? And they can all figure it out. But I think there is a place for it for certain situations.
Oh, I mean, maybe I'm a bad agent, but there are times where I can't convince my sellers to do certain projects in order to increase or maximize their sales price. And maybe I'm missing a details. I think this through. I haven't participated in private exclusives or coming soons. But I can imagine a situation as well where I can use it as a reference to try to just give my sellers kind of more evidence, of something not working that they are really staunch in doing for their house. And I don't know, that's an example that comes to mind. I think of just instead of experimenting on the open market and then having the days accumulate, which I do think affects our sellers. It would be nice to kind of use that interim to show as just more reference points for me.
Danny, and then we'll get out here.
My concern, I'm sure no one in this room, since we're all the best brokers in Seattle, I'm sure none of us do this, but my concern is the script. And it's not about prep as much. Of course, prep very much helps, but even the turd that goes on the market, we've all seen it where you're like, oh my God, that house sold for what? It went for some insane price. So my concern is the script when, say, a inexperienced agent or whatever, a unethical agent meets with a seller who's like, yeah, I would love 1.2 for my house. And you're like, cool, we can get you 1.2 through my whatever, coming soon, that one person comes along, we get you that. I didn't do that much work. Cool, let's do it. Or I double end the deal, or we private network it and my buddy from my office sells it. Versus but if you go on the market, what are the chances you get 1.4? Like, for all these people that are like, money's not important, or I want privacy, if they're being told what we see every day on many people's listings, that you have the chance of this happening. This happened to these 7 listings in your neighborhood. I'm concerned that's not being discussed.
And I just want to ask, for those of you advocating for coming soon, in these scenarios where a person needs to remain in the home, how is fundamentally for you calling it coming soon different than placing some sort of protection on the selling and occupy with strict rules? You cannot see it until we're under contract, we have an offer. Right. There are mechanisms in place to allow people, especially vulnerable people, like elderly trying to get out of their home to stay in the home and for it to still be on the market. So I don't really know where the coming soon benefits the seller necessarily, other than we've returned to this idea of days on market, right?
Our market has over-indexed on days on market. We overvalue it both directions. You can see it in the algorithms. I have a lot of my sellers are obsessed with the algorithms. I tend to not look at them, but they'll kind of fixate on whatever the price, the high one says. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, should we disable the algorithm thing because it says something different than what we're listing at? And I'm like, no, watch it. So then you list it and it immediately resets to your list price. And then it pops up and they're like, oh my God, we're gonna get more. And then after a certain amount of days on market, it drops down. And then like 30 days, there's something that happens around 30 days where it drops down again. And so there's a fixation on the algorithms, and the days on market are a big factor into the algorithm that impacts it. And so that's the conversation, right? If we can somehow outsmart the algorithm so that that's not kicking in anymore, which by the way, you can toggle the switch and have it not be a thing, right? But that's the fixation. And buyers, we all do it, right? We're like, oh, 7 days on market, kiss of death. What's wrong with it? 10% off, right? Can't help ourselves.
A dovetail question, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. I actually have been considering and had a lot of different circumstances across the board where people are like, should I sell this off market? And here's an example that I think plays into one of the big arguments is that you expose a price and maybe it's very inaccurate because you truly, genuinely didn't know. And I've been doing this long enough, I won't say a long time because then people start questioning whether or not you still know how to do it. But I've been doing it long enough to have 15 different ways to try to price a property. I mean, I'm going, this is so unique. I'm looking back to when you bought and then trying to calculate how your property was priced and what you purchased at relative to the market 15 years ago, because I don't know. You maybe added a dabu in the back, or the condition has deteriorated such that I don't know. And I'm afraid of me, and maybe other agents are afraid of maybe we mispriced so much that we really have sort of foobarred the whole situation. I wonder if any of you up here have found yourselves in that position. I think, Albert, you kind of explained one where you just didn't know, the neighbors asking, you're not sure about the price, you're not familiar with the market. Is coming soon with no price really beneficial? And is that really helping a client who lives in a tract home in a neighborhood where there is half a dozen like properties in Spokane where I don't know my elbow from my head, so to speak, or another analogy there. But I can still figure out what it's worth. I'm wondering if you guys, just as a whole, have come across that situation and you have a solution where, those of us that are also actively wanting to come to this table and maybe see that listing could see it. I can appreciate and understand what's happening at a certain price point. To some degree, I still think everybody deserves a seat at the table. I think that that's our responsibility. But I don't operate in the 1%. I'm not concerned with what is happening, with all due respect, at 10 million plus. It's just not relevant. I think that is an opportunity for those of you that are at one specific table, and that's disappointing. But for the rest of us, I want to understand how this applies to our business, because I think you guys have some information and some maybe strategies that we could take and push forward to benefit the group and our consumer above all else.
So I think what would be amazing is if there were a group of people out of this class that seem to be interested in potentially forming a working group at the MLS, try and go in and meet with Justin, and at the very least ask him if he will help reveal the data through Bright MLS, which again, one click on the screen, you can get to it right now. And you can ask him to pull data from all those other markets where agents can do this, and almost like a mini focus group, like how is it working for them? How did it impact, their ability to price and, all of these things? He has access to all of that data. He can talk with the MLS heads in all of those other markets and see how it's working. And they've had this now since, it was announced in March, so I can't remember. They had to roll it out, I think, by like August or something. But I mean, you guys, that's a good 2 quarters worth of data. So let's get Justin, to Albert's point, we pay a lot of money. Those dues are expensive.
I'm not interrupting. There is a group working on this, and I want to point out there's one little gap in the law right now, and
the state of Washington, you cannot advertise something for sale that is not for sale. So that is a gap in the statute that we have specifically in Washington State, and that is a huge concern to Justin and the board. So there is some momentum in moving the needle on this, but that is a legal issue that has to be dealt with and how this is handled. So, and yeah.
Like he's worried it's like a Zillow make me move.
It's like I don't want to compare us to used cars, but it can't be used as a loss leader. It can't be used as a straw piece. So if it is coming soon, it truly has to be for sale. So there's this definition of, is it coming soon really for sale? If it's just coming soon, it's not for sale.
Right.
So that is a gap, and that's been the legal gap in Justin's mind about how to do this. So
I think I don't know how many of you have met Justin in person, but again, like, this is a membership organization. They're actually supposed to work for you. You pay their salaries. So
they've kept us out of numerous lawsuits in Washington State based on their leadership.
I'm just going back to your point. Coming soon. I don't know if this hit everybody else. Coming soon means it's for sale to me. I mean, if I arrive there and because you told me it's coming soon and I offer you the price that you're asking, it's for sale, right? I mean, you go.
Does coming soon have a price?
Does coming soon have a price?
But I agree. I just think there's this really gray area between what the Washington statute of frauds and what the ML and this potential coming soon, and that seems to be the gap, the bridge that we need to cross here to figure out how to do this. Because I believe in the coming. I stood up there. I'm trying to do the coming soon. It's like I think it's a good idea, personally, Danny. Sorry.
Okay.
Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you.
We have two hands up, but let's start over here.
I'm just curious, does the MLS turning on coming soon tomorrow solve this problem and we're no longer here having this conversation? Or is this about, call it what it is, every brokerage having their own internal MLS that no one else has access to?
Corporate greed.
Self-governing
What'd you say,
as
Alan?
opposed to the free market.
It's corporate greed.
Oh, no, that was Dan.
That was Dan.
Yes.
You guys sound
yes, and that's why Zillow funded the whole lobbying campaign for the new law. Exactly,
Yes,
corporate greed.
I'll say it louder, clearer. Corporate greed.
Yeah, it's not over.
I think that was a great question. I think it does. It must keep rolling because now we've got how many big businesses, big ones with big investors who are involved who are going to try to innovate. So it's not just Compass. It's Compass, Redfin. Redfin's now owned by Rocket. Everyone's like, how'd they get Redfin? Rocket bottom. How'd they get Zillow? Zillow's in the money-making business. Have they made money? Not yet. They'd like to, right? So like if you follow the money, you can see really clearly the direction that it keeps going.
It's
and
a new $14 million house. So, yeah. Make printing money.
The investors would like to get a piece of real estate. They would like to have a piece of all of the real estate that happens on all of the sides. So it'll keep rolling.
Yeah.
There's just like these brokerages that are planning for it, right? And then you have the coming soon listings, right? Which all of us work hard to get our listings prepped. We would all love to show that to the world. We don't want $5,000 clients for red doors, right? Because we all work really hard, and that's where we can show our clients our track record of how we work for other people, right? So we have our coming soon, but as soon as we get to that point of flipping that switch on, it's who gets to see that light.
What I'm hearing today is coming soon is an opportunity to market properties that you're not ready to market. And that's just confusing to me, and I don't see the advantage. And we're talking about choice for the sellers, and I think we also have to equally weigh excluding buyers is a problem, and fair housing and access. So we're like, well, the seller should have a choice. Not if the choice is to discriminate. So I think, it really is access and exposure.
But they can, in other markets, they can go on Redfin and Zillow right now and find all of those.
And find all what?
Find all the listings. You can go on Redfin and Zillow through Zillow previews now, and Zillow, I don't know, we've been sitting here, so I haven't seen the news today, but they quite possibly have folded in another brokerage. So through Zillow previews or on Redfin, not in Washington, but all these other markets, anyone, whether it's a 2-year-old or an 82-year-old, can go online and find all of those properties. So again, I think if there are some people in this room that want to go and meet with Justin and at least try and convince him to allow us to have access like all of the other MLSs that are through Bright MLS that we can search on the MLS right now, if we could at least have that. I mean, it sounds like there's quite a few people in this room that do want to have that option, both for your buyers and sellers.
Wait, can you explain why are you saying we want access to see what happens in Denver? Is that what you're saying?
No, and I know you asked that when we were over by the door.
I'm still confused by that.
I'm just saying it's interesting that Justin won't allow us to search for anything here locally because it's against Northwest MLS policy, but yet we, meaning the Northwest MLS, has an agreement and is connected with Bright MLS that does allow all of those agents to have that strategy for their buyers and sellers. So Justin is saying, no, Albert, you can't do that here, but by the way, I have an alliance with all of these other MLSs where their agents do get to do that, but you can't do that here.
Because their state laws are different.
And their MLS rules are different.
Their MLS rules are different. And yes, their state laws are different, and ours will be different in June.
So Moya, do you wish, because the markets you're talking about where people can either go through the MLS or they can go through Redfin or they can go through Zillow, but each one will have different information. Is that what you wish for our market here?
That's not what I'm saying. I am saying it would be amazing if my MLS search was the same as Bright MLS.
So if in your MLS you had another category to search, and do you want that category to be something that's popped out, that's IDX'd out across all the websites? Like right now our MLS IDX is out to all the websites. Do you wish that whatever that new category is was also IDX'd out, or do you wish that it was broker view only, like only people with access to the MLS could see it? Don't care?
Don't care. I mean, you could ask Shauna why she chose her scenario. She came up here and explained, how they use that for that client. Now the MLS is going to take that away, which I think is unfortunate.
So is this something in terms of this Bright MLS? This is the first time I've heard
Yeah,
of it.
I've looked at it.
No, why are we talking about some weird
because you can
mystery
see
thing?
it.
So in terms of Bright MLS, MLS has an affiliation with Bright MLS that is open source, basically. It's open. And what I hear you saying is that MLS is hypocritical if we have access to Bright MLS.
Well, it seems hypocritical. But this is a question for Justin.
And we don't, in terms of our MLS, have the same
We're not
ability as
allowed to
Bright
do
MLS.
any pre-marketing of any kind. So unless a property is, out to the world, you cannot call me later and tell me about it.
Okay, Kevin.
Okay, I'm going to try and be really brief. Couple things. Two things that I think are really important to this conversation. The first one is, I got to say, calling out Justin and saying this is Justin's policy is just not true. Justin effectively works for the MLS board, which is us.
That's right.
Right? And I've worked with Justin on a lot of antitrust issues for 20 years probably. And I will tell you that between Justin and Chris Osborne, who is semi-retired right now. They have left us in the safest spot in the country. We are the beacon that we are because of their leadership. I would be willing to bet that most people in this room weren't very excited about an MLS that published listings that had zero buyer agent compensation. And that was the right decision. And it was their leadership presented to the board that allowed us to be one of the only areas that didn't get sued. So, but I want to kind of shift this away because to me, I still, the equity argument is so important to this conversation. And I think in a world that is, in a country, I'll say in a country that is so polarized right now politically, I don't know if anybody realizes this law that passed in Washington State that forbids not marketing publicly, passed almost unanimously.
141 to 1.
Okay? Almost unanimously. That's a big deal. That is a big deal. And I do worry that we all this is an art and a practice and something that we're all continuously honing our skills on, and it's really important. But this law, I'm actually, as much as I am in favor of the MLS's policy, as it has been and now codified by law, I do worry that there wasn't enough debate about these edge case scenarios and these gray areas that have been, in my opinion, manipulated by Compass to create an opportunity for something like a private exclusive network. Here's the problem is, there are times, I literally, 2 weeks ago, I had a client that was listing a house. We were coming soon. We were 2 days from being on the market. And he heard of somebody that wanted to buy his condo. And it's a condo, not a great condo market right now. I'm like, oh my God, like we maybe have a buyer before we're on the market. And I said, I literally am not allowed to talk to that person. I can't do it. And my client was really upset with me. And I almost lost the listing over it because he had identified somebody that wanted to buy his condo. And I'm like, we just can't, the climate has changed. We can't do that. And we successfully sold the condo in 2 days and it was great. But we followed the rules. My real issue here is that when the state passes this law so decisively, I think that we're going to end up in a situation where all of a sudden these off-market deals that are builder deals are going to get a lot higher level of scrutiny. And there's going to be a lot more. So I want to ask a question of the panel, and especially the people that do developer deals. Do you see this new law causing problems that that is going to create potentially some pretty aggressive prosecution on the part of the DOL for deals that are not happening in the public? And what are the far-reaching implications of this? Because we all have scenarios that fall in the gray area, and I think we all try and follow the rules as best we can. But I'm worried that we've created, by codifying what the MLS has, an opportunity for the DOL to really kind of come down on people that have been involved in off-market deals.
I can answer that. I think it is going to affect how I've done my business in searching for development sites. So there is, Bruce Harrell did sign in something when the NR zone came into effect last July, that if a seller is unrepresented and I'm bringing my developer, we're buying the property, the seller has the right to demand that the buyer pay and get an appraisal done. They have there's a lot of time that gets killed where the seller can think about it for 10 days after we present them an offer. Then they can, and if we get into a contract with them, we do our feasibility, and the seller can change their mind. They actually can come back to us and say we want an appraisal done, which the buyer would have to pay for. And if it comes in higher and no one can agree, we all just walk away. But the developer gets into a point where they're spending money and they've got architecture and engineering and different things going on. So there's safety nets that were put into place already, and then we have it's gonna affect that. What I worry about too is just the what we've kind of already talked about, how we're talking to agents if in June or July comes around and you want to talk to your fellow agent just about a price opinion, and you're going to get that you can't do that anymore. But I work a lot in Queen Anne, and I work with everybody who works up there, Windermere and any brokerage, and people are calling, hey Steve, what do you got coming up soon? And that's now you can lose your license for that. It's just it's tough. So I think if we have a platform, whether it's with Compass or in the multiple, where we can put something out as a coming soon, where it's not accumulating days and time. But I do agree with there's information is powerful too for buyers and sellers, so you can examine the property. But I think that our I'm going to get away from your question, but it's going to affect how off market. But does a seller have the right? I guess when you go back, a lot of people who have junky houses they just want to do a direct deal with a developer. I don't know if this is going to affect it. Will I start getting in trouble for just selling someone's house who just doesn't want to put it on the market? We're giving them the money they want, and it's a legit transaction.
I think you had a question about which law were you speaking about? The one where we have to get an appraisal?
No. Where properties have to be on the market.
Oh,
Properties have to be marketed openly.
From a development perspective, in terms of me personally, I think it just tells me just to keep going down the path of becoming a developer and no longer being an agent, if that's the way it's going to be. Because the majority of my business is development, and if I have to say I can't be an agent in order to do business, that's where my business is at. Everybody else isn't doing the same.
I think it gets to be a slippery slope pretty quickly if you identify a property that is available, right? And you've met with the seller, and now you're taking it to multiple developers to say, who wants this project? You're marketing it in a private network.
Most people don't do that.
Wants that. It goes back
it's
to
not a thing.
Your question earlier. Who does it benefit? Does it benefit the seller? Does it benefit the buyer? Right? In these situations on development, it benefits both, right? Because that's what they want. They already know they know to some degree, because they've probably talked to 10 of us and gotten a wide range of developers, and some of us are bringing the same developer with the price, that it's like, okay, it's worth $950, and I'm not going to pay a commission to one of you guys or both of you guys, right? They're going to take that deal. It benefits that seller and it benefits the developer buyer, right? So I think that's where we get in this minutia of in everybody's business, right? And I'm a little different, but I don't try to be in everybody's business, right?
Okay, I saw Pat Grimm had his hand up.
So I do think that we're talking about some different things here. There's a huge difference in my mind between creating a private network that's exclusive to a certain group of brokers or brokerage than what you do, Alan, in terms of somebody has a property for sale, you call them up, or you're interested in selling that property. I probably have a buyer, maybe one or two that already. You would, in the process of doing, you would sign up, identify the buyer, you would sign a Form 47, report it to the MLS. And then Form 47 says that the sellers have the opportunity to put it on the market. Okay? So, and if they choose not to, they choose not to. But we're talking about something different. We're talking about something. Let's back up for a second. What is the purpose of the MLS? The purpose of the MLS was formed as a cooperation and conversation. This is a testament. Thank you, Jennifer, for organizing. Look at all these people, all of us here, with different companies coming together to act in cooperation. The whole thing, the point is, well, what about Rule 2? What is the idea of Rule 2? Rule 2 is kind of unique. because, and we have the uniqueness of being a non-realtor-owned brokerage or MLS. So we have the ability to scrutinize a little bit and have a little more, put a little more teeth into it. The rule too is really to take, is to make sure that there's no bad characters, nobody that can act bad faith. Like as a free rider, basically to weaponize cooperation, and that's kind of what we're talking about. And in other words, we're gleaning the full benefits of cooperation without honoring the covenant that we all make. And when we do sign a subscription to the Northwest MLS, and that covenant is what makes it meaningful. So what we're trying to, if we coming soon, and you have it promoted out there, and in spite of what Sean is talking about in terms of potential conflicts with the law, as long as you aren't actually, what do you do if somebody writes an offer during that coming soon time? Has it been fully exposed at that point? Probably not. So maybe the solution is having it coming soon, but the seller is agreeing that they're not going to be taking an offer until it actually hasn't been exposed. That's the trade-off.
Call an offer review date, Pat.
And it should be used more often, Sean. I totally agree. So let's be careful. But a lot of things, you're going to lose your license. I think that's a little bombastic. It's not necessary. I mean, we need to make sure that we are complying with the law. I appreciate the idea that this law was passed almost unanimously for good reason, because it's fair. It's a fair thing, and that's the approach. And that's what we have an opportunity to double down on cooperation and not go back 40 years.
Yes.
And go into where we're all creating private networks and saying, hey, if you want to know what's really on the market, I got to interfere under the blotter here because I have it in my private network. You have to call me. That's way different than what you're talking about, Albert. It just is. Or the neighbor, they're like, hey, I want to just sell this to my neighbor. Go ahead, help them. But if they say, I want you to put it out in the market, whoever you know, personally, I say, I can't do that. But if you found a buyer, I would help you with it. That's, to me, where the line is crossing our cooperation and our covenant with one another as a Northwest MLS.
All right, we're going to get going again. That lunch was brought to you by Pocket Hours, so you're welcome. Hope you enjoyed it. And I want to shout out just one more time to this panel for being here today, for being brave, for helping facilitate this conversation. Okay, while I was walking around listening to some of the conversations happening, and there were great ones, one that I overheard that I thought I would share was with Todd Shively, who's right over there. And his point was this: you're representing a seller, and you bring a house to market. And right down the road across the street, while you're on market, another house comes on the market coming soon. Doesn't come on the market, but is coming soon. What does that do to your listing? Now I'm going to make it even worse. Let's pretend you're the listing agent for both properties. But this seller wants to be a coming soon, and this seller wants to be on the market. Panel, take that one.
I'll go. Yeah, me and some people I know have talked about this one a lot, because we all know that we like to talk to our clients who go under contract about how they need to shut down their damn search, right? Because, that one looks so good. Maybe I should have bought that. I think there's an impact there with the coming soon that you think is like, you're not participating in this one that has a review date in 2 days because the coming soon's coming on in a week or two, and you want to hold out for that one, and it looks so dreamy, and then, you go in and there's a body outline, or it stinks, or whatever. And then the person that wanted to do the coming soon, if they don't sell and they go on the market, they're being now harmed by the other coming soons. So who does that benefit?
Yeah, I've had buyers who got so like invested in their market that they got all the news from all their friends of the houses that were being prepped for sale, and they'd notice the little white flags, and so they'd be like crawling the neighborhood looking for their version of coming soon, and they would totally do that. We'd be like on the runway to making an offer, and they'd be like, "But that one over there looks amazing. What's the stats on it?" So then I'd be like, well, here's when it was last sold 40 years ago, and it looks like it's 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom and this big. And they're like, well, let's just wait and see that one. So it was like this eternal search because they just kept thinking that the next one that came was going to be better. And it was really not better.
Yeah, so I think one of the questions, and that maybe other folks on the panel could answer, is if this is allowed, if coming soon is allowed for everyone, it seems that we as listing brokers would have to advise the seller that's not doing the coming soon, how this potentially could hurt them. And we'd have to advise the one that is coming soon, how this potentially could hurt them. Is that a fair statement?
Can I follow up on that really quick? I have to tell this little story of our lovely client that we just ran into at a restaurant the other day, who they are moving to San Francisco. They have been getting fleeced on every offer they're making. They've been getting destroyed. They're selling for $500 to $600 over asking. We saw her at this restaurant, and she's like, hey, we finally got an offer accepted because our agent knew of, something that was about to come on, and we were able to jump on it. And I'm like, wow, awesome. As we all probably say, you probably got a deal in that scenario. And then I said, when we list your house in September, does that sound appealing to you? And she said, hell no. So there's my real-time example of how it benefited them on one end, but there's no way they would want to do that on the other end.
Okay, in your packet, if you're following along, we're turning now to the pros and cons of private exclusives and coming soon for buyers. So that's where we're going to start. The first question is, there's some talk of a premium, quote, premium buyer that learns about a home on one brokerage's website and is told they can buy it at a premium to avoid having to compete. You will not have to compete because this isn't listed for everyone to see. Is this good for the market? Why or why not?
Does this situation actually exist in terms of a company doing this in the nation?
I don't know the answer to that.
I believe that in conversations with brokers in other markets, some of them use the coming soon as a test at high price, like a make me move.
Like open door.
Yeah.
So these companies are allowed to do this. We are not, because we're MLS, right? Because I have a property in Beacon Hill that I've gotten open door emails about all the time. And I screwed around with them and just played the game. I think that the system is available in other ways. I think that we just don't have access to it. And whether we should or whether we shouldn't, I guess that's what we're going to figure out in the next few months. But it's already available.
Right, and all sellers have their own strategy, right? And I have sellers who try a strategy of list it high on the open market, and we get to watch how that plays through. I guess the difference would be if you were to call it something coming soon, but you get full access to it. Here's all the marketing photos and everything. We're just testing this price for a period of time, and then when we fail at that, we'll take it off and have a reset swipe on market, and only people who've been paying attention will recognize that it's the same photos. They somehow won't know that information was available before, right? Like a more intense version of the 60-day reset.
Why not just do a short listing period at your high price, and then you come on as a new listing?
Well, the 5% reset is that. We have that.
But I mean, if you weren't going to drop it 5%, if you wanted to try something like, oh, after 2 weeks this is definitely not working, but we know, like I have sellers that are like, we want to be 1.9, like that's cool, you're 1.1, but let's try it at 1.9. In 10 days when your listing expires, then you can come on at the price. I mean, that would be 5%. I can do a little math with my dyslexia, not much. But I feel as though, why don't you try it for, a couple weeks with a short listing contract?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that? Exactly, but I love, like, I don't know about you, but when I get in the office in the morning, 11 a.m., and I look and I'm like, okay, new listings, that price drops are down here. So even I that can obviously see how long it's been on the market, I'm pulling up this new listing piece here and going, oh, that was on the market before. Seller tried this price. Or it's dropping into the carts of the people it didn't drop into at 1.9.
Yep. It works. It works every time. I get people calling me. I do a lot of 5% price drops, sorry. And I get calls every time from people who are like, oh my gosh, that new listing you just put on is amazing. I'm like, yeah, I de-stunk it.
But you're playing within the rules.
I'm playing within the rules. And it's interesting. I think that one of the factors here that's fascinating is the idea of that time on market as a part of our MLS, and then the idea of the time on market outside of the MLS. So there's like our version, we can see everything, the whole history back to 2002 or whatever. And then there's like Redfin's price history. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, sometimes it picks it up and sometimes it doesn't. And my clients are very clued into that. They're like, oh my gosh, this is a brand new listing. I'm like, no, they somehow just changed it enough that like they didn't get the old data. And I've never been able to figure out exactly what that trick is. I've tried. But like, I think that maybe if the bigger websites weren't tracking it the same way, that'd be better for us. Obviously, they're incentivized to have the data, right? So that's not going to happen. But yeah, I think that we can do all of these things within our current structure.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of those appointments where you're meeting a seller and they have to get a price, right? I have to make 1.5, and you're sitting in a house you know is best listed at 1.2, and if we're on a good day and we've prepped right and we implement an offer review, you're probably getting 1.35. The market is doing its job by presenting consensus. If we price at 1.5 because they have to have 1.5 and we don't sell for that price, the market has told us it's not worth that price, right? Versus taking a different model, perhaps offer review date, perhaps pricing more competitively, perhaps letting it do what it's supposed to do on the open market, right? And I think that what is so interesting in conversations with buyers, if we're going to convert to that other side, in a market as competitive as this, where people feel like they don't know what the even playing field is, and the media tells them that it's cash-only buyers, closing in a week, you have to know the right person to get in. That's their mindset, because that's nationally maybe what they're hearing about competitive markets. And you explain to them that Seattle is a transparent market where we implement things like escalation clauses, where you're not just guessing at value, where we know we're hitting exactly what this home is worth on the other side, right? That's what gets them excited enough to participate, makes them feel like they might have a way in, right? So I think this idea around testing the price in a coming soon doesn't do much for consumer confidence, and it kind of gamifies the idea of what an open market is supposed to behave like.
The Seattle area is somewhat unique across the country in that we have a fair number of multiple offer situations. I think, and our days on market is in general much shorter than, the balanced model of 6 months on market before it sells. So we have a different landscape, and testing it, giving your seller the option of pricing it high in this coming to the market thing to test it, I'm not sure that that's doing them any favors by saying, you know what, it's very likely we're going to be in a multiple offer situation. And if so, you're more likely to get market forces bringing your purchase price up than by starting at that high amount and doing the coming soon. I mean, use the market forces we have here to push it up rather than an agent kind of going, okay, well, whatever you want for a price. Or to me, it just seems the whole testing a price in a limited market is not that informative, and you waste days that you could be on the market getting a lot of interest and potentially market, with a review date.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that maybe you should be punished if you tried the wrong method.
Say more, Danny. What's that mean?
If you try for some high price and now you have 48 days on market, like back when I was a social worker, we call that a natural consequence. I think that's appropriate.
Put it on as a coming soon. Let's say coming soon, 1.7 million, and then you don't get the 1.7. Like you're like, okay, we've tested that price, right? So then you come on. I'm just trying to think of a scenario where you go, okay, but if we put it at 1.2, we can maybe get 1.4. So, but you've already, there are people like, oh, it's already at 1.5. So, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out the psychology around, I have no answer to that.
The argument that I've heard for the coming soon is that it disappears, that it's not accruing market time and it disappears. Like,
So buyers would be able to know that it had been tested at
in theory, it doesn't. In theory, all the websites just wipe that slate clean, and it was never a thing.
I think Rachel raised a good point. Like with AI, you probably could put the address in, and somehow it would be archived, and it would say, this was actually on coming soon for, X number of days.
There would be another website that would be born of this that would be like, find out the information that they're not telling you.
Or what happens when we have a listing that gets multiple offers or goes pending on the review date? How many phone calls do we get the next day? Please text me. Don't call me. I'll just give you I'll give you what you want. Just text me. But anyways, it's just going to be that, but in reverse. These things that finally hit the market. Hey, Javila, do you know what that one, was on for before? How high were they trying, and how long did they try for? Then you're all trying to collect that weird data.
Well, shouldn't one of the points be that buyers, if the coming soons become a thing, it all comes down to what we present as their options and then them having the power to choose, right? Isn't that, I feel like we're giving ourselves so much power in that we're making the decisions here, but just we would present the options, provide some guidance, risks, benefits, et cetera, and then they get to decide what they want to do, if they want to start at 1.9 and possibly, look foolish or deal with consequences. But this is about buyer choice, right? Or seller choice. Oh, shoot, I went off subject. Sorry. I'm talking about seller choice, but we're...
Yes, thank you, Sue, for helping me transition. So the question is, what issues, if any, come up around fair housing on the buyer side of this? What issues come up around fair housing? And does anybody want to talk right away about that, or should I keep going? One of the ideas is that if there are private exclusive companies with their own networks marketing listings, is that accessible to all buyers?
Well, you just said it was private.
Well,
it was exclusive.
It's accessible if they choose one of the brokers who's in that network, right? So, devil's advocate, because I don't know where Sean is, but she knows I love to argue the other side. So, let's pretend that you want to buy in a neighborhood, and you're like, oh, well, Windermere has all the listings in that neighborhood. I guess I have to work with Windermere because it's in their bucket of listings. That's what it does. So it makes the buyers go, okay, I have to pick a broker who does this, instead of being like, we can all sell all the things. We can all help you do all of the things. And so you have to have a fairly savvy buyer to tune into that. Most of my clients, as smart as they are, don't really get it. They don't really get how real estate works. I think who you skim out is all of the buyers who don't have brokers yet. I think you make it so that it's harder for them, and so maybe that makes them have to go get a broker. And we're all brokers, right? So is that serving us? I don't know.
Jen, are you talking about the issue of fair housing in regards to this premium buyer situation?
Yeah, I'm talking. I didn't write the question, but I think what they were saying is this fair for a buyer to have to decide whether they're going to go to the MLS to look for houses, or if I'm going to go to Compass, or if I'm going to go over here? I don't know if I'm seeing all the listings, so am I going to miss out on a listing if I don't know the right brokerage website to go to? Is that fair to a buyer?
They already think that. The buyers already think that they're not seeing all the listings.
I just think there's some confusion going on here, because I heard you talk about coming soon as having no price, and then it's testing a high price. I've heard you say coming soon is in a private network that's exclusive to an agency, or you're really advocating for us to get it on the MLS, which we can all access, and there's this other MLS that's already doing it. So I can't quite parcel out what we're talking about in each of these conversations. Is it testing a price, or is it no price?
Well, there's 3 conversations going on at the same time. So there's a conversation about off market, never on market, just off market. There's a conversation about exclusive listings in a silo on one website. Multiple different websites are trying to have their own listings that are not aggregated everywhere.
But off market, no one thinks of this coming soon. That's like people sell.
Well, people are confused by that. So there's definitely a confusion about off market and coming soon, for sure. But they are different things. And then there's coming soon within our MLS. And if that was to be a thing, that would mean that everyone has access to it right? But then is the everyone all of the brokers, or is the everyone the brokers plus all of the buyers in the world, right? So there's like different layers of this. And then there's coming soons that have no price. That's like an LOA. And then there's coming soons that have a price. That's like a pre-sale.
I just blacked out. Did anybody else just black out?
Sorry.
Can I also just offer from fair housing? It's complicated because we are taught things like, for instance, steering, like the big picture of what it looks like to discriminate against a population. What we don't talk about is the more nebulous ways in which unconscious bias informs decisions we make, and that's where you end up with a slippery slope with things like private exclusives or things like coming soon, where things as simple as choosing to work with somebody because they also were in your fraternity is a way of prejudicing against another group. Nepotism, things where you're only talking to people who are already within your community, and that community, what does that community look like and who makes it up? And that is where I think that we don't really know how to go beyond that. We talk about the egregious example, but we don't know how to actually speak about the ways in which your person who doesn't live in Laurelhurst, so doesn't see the white flag, so doesn't even know, right?
I think in this case, what you're getting at is if we have our listings on just one of the websites, does that carve out a section of the market that would benefit from seeing those listings who's not seeing it because it's in just one funnel?
Right, and what's the appropriate number? If 12 agents have access to that website, is that enough? If 100, is that enough? If 5,000? Like, who's making that rule?
Well, in Forum 22, there's 22 people, right, Javila?
Yeah, well, 44. There's two Forum
that's
22s,
right.
so there's 44 people.
What?
I'm not in that club.
I don't know what you guys just said.
Moya's making a point about networking groups. So there's a series of networking groups. I'm a part of 3 different networking groups. We get together, we talk about things that are current. There is occasionally talk about listings that are coming soon. I don't know. I don't have any data or knowledge about how many things get sold from those. But there is definitely, groups where people talk. And I think that happens in a formal way and in an informal way. That's not the same as coming soon in a website silo. It's a different conversation.
Okay, I see you just one second. I just want to ask this. We already know because the National Association of Realtors, which I often mess up and say NRA instead of NAR, it's a really embarrassing mistake. Anyway, they have said that one of buyers' fears, right, is that they were going to miss out on a house. We already know this, right? Does everybody know that? Even when they're actively looking for a house, they find one or they might find one, but then they're worried, what if something better comes up, right? So if we have a market where I'm an agent and I'm showing them houses that are listed on the MLS, but then they learn after they are in mutual acceptance on this house that there were 3 other houses over here on Windermere that they sure wish they could have had access to or knew about, but didn't. Is that a problem?
Mm-hmm. Huge problem.
We've seen so many class action lawsuits in the last couple of years around agent compensation, disclosure of compensation, transparency, etc. Washington State, when we passed our buyer agency law around transparency of compensation, now requires our buyers to have to sign a buyer agency agreement. So now we're living in a world where if a buyer wants to see a property or multiple properties, they're asked to sign an exclusive agency or non-exclusive with an agent so that they can access property. What happens if we fast forward this concept of exclusive listings or even exclusive coming soons that are held behind some sort of paywall or reg wall, where a buyer feels like they have to sign a buyer agency agreement with a particular company in order to access property? Then they also feel over a period of time that class of buyers has overpaid in order to get access to property. Do you fear that this is just setting us up for another class action lawsuit down the road?
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
But are we talking about this premium buyer group? Is this just a hypothetical here? Is this really, do we really believe this is happening here, right? Because we're putting it out in the open in these different scenarios, but is it really going to happen here? And I guess that's the question. Like, as someone said about Seattle, our market and transparency, we have a very good market in that regard. Is this going to happen here? This premium buyer network website for Seattle properties?
No, it's not going to
Then
happen.
why are we talking about that fear? I mean, let's stop talking about that fear and just talk about what's coming on June 11th, and then what's coming with the MLS in terms of coming soon, et cetera, right? Like, that's what we know is coming. And we're getting caught in this fear of what might be coming or what could possibly be coming. We know on June 11th that something's coming. We know that coming soon and private exclusives is going to be debated and figured out between Compass and the MLS. And how does that work for us moving forward? How do we move forward? And let's not be scared about moving forward, because we represent these sellers in a great way, and we represent these buyers in a great way, and we're just going to keep doing that. And if we focus on that, then we won't have this fear of losing our licenses and stuff like that. We'll just navigate in between what the MLS determines that we have to navigate.
It's come up frequently in interviews where clients will say, well, do you have access to off-market opportunities? You know, like that is something that we're facing. I wonder if you've been asked that question point blank. It's you and your client and your ethics and our interpretation of what the rule is, smacking us in the face right then and there, which is difficult to answer, obviously, because we also have to make a living. So to the panel, I wonder, how are you navigating that? How do you intend to navigate that? How's that come up for you?
I can answer that. So that does come up with both buyers and sellers. And I would say we're seeing it more with buyers that are moving in from out of area that are used to markets where they do have access to this. So in those discussions, Terry and I are always saying it is actually against MLS policy. However, we do hear of things quite often from agents across all brokerages. I think, when, you're known in a certain price point or a certain neighborhood, or, the areas that, Albert is doing development and different things, like you get calls from people that are going to have similar opportunities, right? So we take them through that and we say, however, because it's against MLS policy and now it will be a license violation as well, the information is pretty restricted. So it is a really touchy thing. Most agents aren't going to want to push that out in an email or send an address or anything. And, we'll do our best to find the best matches for you in your price category, tons of options, and we try and really redirect the conversation, because it gets pretty touchy because they don't understand why, if they're coming from North Carolina or they're coming from DC. I used to live in DC, and so I know a ton of agents there and the market very well, and they don't understand that. So we try and redirect and then, do their tour and show them the great options that we're going to have.
Was that answer different a year and a half ago from you?
It was, because now
what did that sound like?
How so? Because we're having to explain that it's going to be even more restricted because of the licensing violation. So I think Terry and I will still receive calls, with agents sharing that information. And again, we would never turn in an agent. But I think, for other agents, it's going to be hard. Yeah.
No, I was just curious if a year and a half ago was that answer different? Like, would you
It was
say, yes, we
different.
do. We can get you hooked up with that?
Oh, no, because the policy's been in place. I mean, when did they? Yeah, right? 2018? Gosh, I don't even remember. The years fly by.
Yeah, it's when they made it so that you had to input the off-market sales into the
So
MLS.
2017.
Because the MLS's worry was that they didn't have the information. So remember, information rules. Follow the money. I get asked that question all the time. And I think any savvy buyer is probably asking it. And I say, yes, maybe, if we get really, really crystal clear on exactly what you're looking for. And most likely we're going to find something that's on market that you can actually buy. But if we get all the way down the road and we're months in and you have a very specific set of criteria and you know exactly what you're looking for, and I hear of something that's like that, then we'll have a conversation. But it's after a lot of legwork has been put in. And it usually buyers find something that's actually prepped and marketed that they want to buy. Because the truth is, it's really hard to sell something off market because they're usually not looking very good. They're usually dirty and gross and stink. and they need a bunch of stuff. And so you have to have a buyer who's got like already seen all the pretty visions and they've gotten through that path. So
I have a question for the panel. I think I'm a little confused actually as to what is now going to be considered an off-market sale versus, because to your point, I do happen to be a part of a lot of off-market sales. I am finding myself now questioning what is okay. I just don't know, and I'm curious if that is distinct, and that's something that maybe I've been.
You sell more off market than I think many of your peers. Congratulations.
It's mostly for buyers, yes, and it's a lot of legwork and calling canceled, expireds. It's a lot of door knocking.
Yeah, I don't think there's criticism to the buyers brokers who are selling off market. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
I
get it.
believe the criticism is to
No,
the.
they got to do whatever they want.
Right.
It's the agent that transferred that information to them, and in June, you're going to have a lot of people documenting texts and all of those things.
Okay, so
yeah, so no,
strong paper
the
trail.
buyer's agent gets to do whatever.
And actually, I'll add to that. I also don't think there's a huge issue with the listing agent who has something drop into their lap. They're not even called a listing agent. The seller's rep. The seller's rep who has something drop into their lap. So like I looked at
But that
all of
up until June, that's a gray area that I think you can navigate.
Oh, for sure. Like
June, it's going to get
I'm gonna
pretty
read- I'm gonna
tricky
read the law
to
very
prove
carefully.
that it was just the neighbors both just walked out at the same time and said, "Hey, we should sell to each other."
Or they're seeing all the contractors. Yeah.
And even in June, that's not going to be a license law violation. It is if you have a listing agreement signed. It is all incumbent upon us as an agreement with the MLS to input our listings into the MLS. If you have a listing agreement signed, that is your responsibility. If a brother and sister, if a seller and a neighbor get together and contact you to sell their home, that is not a license violation, period. It's clear, Annie has said it, Lars has said it, it is not a license violation. You did not procure that listing.
What about all the other cases?
there are some. No, for sure.
When it's not two neighbors, it's not a brother and sister. Like,
Right, which for a while has been a bit of an art, right? Like there's definitely a small niche of this market. So if, let's say we've got 7% of the NWMLS sells off market, sale unlisted. And within that, you can see if it's seller rep or buyer rep. So you take out all the buyer reps. So now you've just got the seller reps. And if you look at those seller reps, I did this exercise, by the way, on all of my off-market sales. And I looked at those and I was like, okay, that was a landlord who sold to his tenant. That was a guy who I know who inherited his dad's house and he sold it to a developer he knew. He asked me to help him with it. This one was one that I totally shopped out to my network and got someone who had a buyer that was a fit for it. So like I had a few of those and I was like, okay.
So in June, what will you do with those, I think is the question. So how will you navigate that?
That's a great question. I don't know.
And is that in the best interest of the seller?
In the situation the gentleman had over here with his condo,
It was a condo. Mine are usually condos.
you had a situation where you had the condo 2 days before you had somebody interested. Did that buyer buy it? No. But if that buyer would have bought it and he facilitated that, would that be a violation?
No, because the seller.
Angie nodded on this. He did not market it to that person. So there is not a record of marketing it to that buyer.
That's the key though, if there's not a record. So if you've texted the address, then that creates the record right there.
This isn't a free pass to not sign listing agreements. That is a license law violation in and of itself because you are practicing real estate without a contract. So you cannot do that, just to be clear here, Mr. Lewis. It's not a loophole that I just exposed.
Yeah.
It is
However, to answer your question, so last week I spent a couple hours with Annie Fitzsimmons on this particular topic.
Right.
That example of the listing agreement being signed, prepping the listing, and the neighbor knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I'd like to buy this." That is not a violation of this law. What this law is intended to do is to stop the practice institutionally and by agents around private and off-market and excluding buyers. That is what it is intended to do. It is really to get in front of the institutional practice or the large-scale practice by an individual agent. But none of those examples so far have been anything that the DOL is even going to be interested in.
It's a really small part of our market. The what they're targeting is very small. Here,
So that's why I think you're going to see Forum 22 and all these groups, and in June will be their last meetings, right?
No, because we're not there sharing my perception of it, and I'm in the group, so we can talk about it, is that we're sharing what we're seeing in the market as a general thing. Like we talk about timely
Anne,
issues.
do you ever, that group never ever shares what's coming up each month?
Historically versus our conversations over the last year are very different.
Yes.
And you know that.
Well, but I think we're talking about transparency. Let's be transparent. So those groups.
Historically, we have shared
Yes.
upcoming listings.
And you're prepared to shift in June because of this.
It already shifted.
It's already shifted.
Yeah. So I'm just so everyone's really on the same page, right? So the private networks exist currently. This is not a Compass created thing that was announced by some press release from Robert.
I think the difference there is the word institutional. These were networking groups. And by the way, Hodge Dively, wherever you are, just gave me a statistic. In Austin, Texas, 20 to 30% of their listings trade off market.
Yep.
But do we want to do that?
No, we don't. No, we don't.
But we do need clarification around the new law. The MLS needs to help us understand what the interpretation is on their part. And there's going to be, mea culpa, a couple of people here have said things that under the new law are license law violations. And by the way, if anyone doesn't know this, I'm going to tell you right now, there is no statute of limitations on license law violations. I could have done something 20 years ago.
Yep.
They can't apply the new law to me 20 years ago. But if I violated license law 20 years ago, it's not like murder or rape. There's actually a statute of limitations on those. There's not on license law violation. You can get caught 10 years from now for something you do tomorrow. So it is serious, but the MLS is going to have to give us their interpretation of what this is. And the whole point of this was, can we have coming soons? And I think there is motivation in the group to consider it. I love this conversation.
I also think I know we shouldn't be doing the whole hey, have 4 people from my office come over and see my listing to tell me their price opinion because it's going on the market tomorrow. I know we shouldn't be doing that, but I think it's kind of tacky that we're lumping that in with this whole other side of it, which is you're telling people an address so that it potentially can sell off market. Because the first thing I described, everyone I know that would have done that in the past, and again, I know we can't do that anymore and shouldn't be doing that, but that's done to go to market in a day or two, and they all do. Every time I've done that, it's gone to market. It's never been with the intention of hey, maybe this person's going to bring me a buyer. That's a huge difference to me, and I think that's the thing that we're all talking about. We want to avoid and that we fear is that other side of it.
Okay, we're going to wrap up with one question because we're running out of time, and it's mine. I get to have a question. Yay! Look at that. Before we wrap up, I want to just thank again the panel. But here's the last question, okay? We all know that this is the house belongs to whom? The seller. So in a multiple offer situation, has it happened to you before where you present 4 offers to your seller and they choose offer number 3, which happens to be $100,000 less than another offer? They're taking a less profitable offer. And we have to do what? Okay, seller, it's your choice. So how is this any different? If the seller says, I want to market this early, I want to do a coming soon, or I don't, it's their house. So shouldn't they have the say of that? Panel, want to respond?
That was one of the points I was trying to make earlier. Is that I do, at this time, I think the seller should have the choice. We just present the options and they get to choose.
Well, that's a difficult conversation, or it's difficult to answer because that sounds like a seller who thinks they know more than the brokers do.
Which happens.
That never happens.
Never.
And so I suppose that there's kind of 2 paths. One is, no, we're not allowed to do that. It's not allowed by our MLS. We only list homes that are actually for sale. Or, I guess there could be a coming soon option, which is coming soon maybe. Coming maybe? I'm a maybe seller.
I think it's also different. The example when you're reviewing offers, they've been exposed. The market has seen it. The other end of that spectrum, as I stated before, my concern is the narrative and what's being discussed. You know, the person that wants 1.2 for their house, and you're like, sweet, let's do it, when it's going to sell for 1.4.
As an agent, can we have boundaries, do you think?
No, we cannot.
Well, I just mean in not participating in coming soons, and then they choose somebody who does if that's what they want. But would that be an option as well?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what she just said, I'm just thinking about the scenario with my aunt. You know, she doesn't want to deal with putting it on the market. If she don't want to do it, that's on her, right? Like, I mean, she's going to make that choice and sell it to this neighbor for 150 grand less. I'm going to be pissed, but I don't really have any control over it. And I think we do have to understand the sellers, it's their right. But if they're going to play in our MLS game, then they can't, right? Until they change the rules. So it's all about the seller, it's all about the buyer, and you just navigate one or the other. But we are educators, right? But sometimes they don't listen to our education. Many times, right?
And sometimes we don't know what's best.
Yeah.
But there's also the aunt scenario. If she's working with an agent in that market, I would hope that agent would be saying, we can go on the market, say no showings until contract accepted. You know, at least that way you're exposing yourself to 48,000 eyeballs.
That's what my setup is today at 3:30 for my aunt to meet with an agent. But I get a feeling she's going to call me tomorrow and say, I'm going to sell it to the neighbor.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. And I'm just
like, damn it, I
and
told you not.
And that's all I'm saying is, like, I think a lot of people, if we go to this world, are going to take the easy path and not talk about those things, which I think is our duty.
And are we saying when we're talking about the coming soon option, that's coming soon on the Northwest MLS so that everybody's eyeballs are, that's not?
That's a good question, because the thing I had a couple people say to me during the break was, the question has been asked, is what we want intended for your own company's site or the whole MLS? And people are avoiding that answer. A couple people have avoided that answer. So I don't know. I'm not the moderator. I'm not going to put anyone's feet to the fire, but
I know Terry and I would love it on the MLS. So it would be amazing if it could be there as a drop-down field. So I can't speak for anyone else in the room, but
I'm not offended by there being a coming soon on the MLS. That doesn't bother me.
I think it will do more damage to our market than help.
Just going back just on the pre-sale option. Somebody explained to me what would be the difference if we have pre-sale now, right, under construction, versus coming soon. If that's a new drop down, what is the difference between the three?
Well, pre-sale means it's under construction, so it's not complete yet. Coming soon is, I'm not sure. I am having a hard time wrapping my head around the right situation for a coming soon. I can't come up with a good scenario. Like,
it's under the process of being listed.
We're not ready to sell it, but we're going to sell it at some point in the future. So here's some inventory that maybe you can see or not.
Under the process of being listed.
We're not ready to sell it, but we're going to sell it at some point.
They found out a neighboring property very similar to theirs is coming on the market. It's coming next week. His seller is not ready to go on the market. They would like to signal to buyers of that home that there will be another home in that development. That is an example that I'm just saying.
But then they flip it, and if they don't sell then, and then 3 months down the line they're on the market, they're going to be pissed at the other neighbor who wants to do that to them. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem healthy.
Yeah, I can imagine like a property that's got a tenant in it that the tenant's going to move out in 3 months, and you pop it on, you're like, this is going to be something. Mm-hmm.
Denver, Colorado, coming soon means nothing. It doesn't, like, no one ever uses it. In California, coming soon is like an offer review period. So it really does, if we do invoke something like this, or the MLS agrees to it, it's really going to be up to us and our buyers and their behavior as to whether it applies or not.
Right. If it's a disaster, it won't last long.
It'll be super awesome in Ballard, right? Like a Ballard house that's coming soon is going to be driving by a constant, and it'll be a real dud in townhome land.
So you're saying it's similar to an offer review date, which actually works. in our market.
On that point, there's parts of the country that the reason they have coming soon is because if they sign a listing agreement, the next day it has to go into the MLS. We have now 90 days to get our home ready. They use a coming soon as the ability to get the listing ready for the market. Because our MLS, yeah, we have 90 days to get a home ready after we sign a listing agreement. So coming soon in one part of the country is not the same as what it would be here or down in California or somewhere else. So it's just food for thought, information for people to have.
Good. Well, I'm mostly glad that we solved it today. Isn't that great? Thank you very much for being here. Please thank our panel. Good job, panel.
Thank you so much for listening in to Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.
Audiotocracy.